we have this kind of corporate chloroform floating around the organization that dulls us and into a state of acquiescence, sleepiness. Falling asleep at the wheel is a way that's often described in what happens with organizations. But it's so difficult to recognize that the status quo is pulling us away from the things that matter most. And it's when I was writing the book, I was somewhat amused to find that there was an anagram of Be Less Zombie, which kind of sums this all up for me, which is blob seizes me. And that's kind of how I feel the bureaucracy can feel inside some organizations sometimes. Is it's got me. The bureaucracy has me, and it just feels too hard to do anything profitable. And it stops us from doing the things that we know we should be doing, but we choose not to. And often we can't. Our hands get tied because of the blob. Now, there's a couple of consequences that I see from this fairly regularly. The first is what I call creative constipation. If you're working in an environment where it's too dangerous, the stakes are too high to propose something that's too different from today, because you're just going to get ridiculed, or even if your boss does say yes, you know that's going to be your new evening job. It just makes the stakes too high to release new ideas into the organization. And the truth is, in many circumstances, if you work in an environment that does not feel safe, it's too risky to propose or pursue an idea that's too contrary to the status quo and the way that we do things today. There's a close connection between personal vulnerability, the vulnerability that I need to feel in order to feel comfortable to release a new idea into the environment and pursue it, a connection between personal vulnerability and corporate vulnerability. Because if people don't feel comfortable to bring the new ideas into the organization that the future needs, that puts the commercials of the organization at stake. Because if there are no new ideas in the cupboard, where are we going to go? We're running out of road quickly. So creative constipation is the first consequence. The second is creative indigestion, because often we find leaders saying, quite rightly, we need more disruptive ideas because incremental ideas on their own are not going to get us to the future. They're not necessarily going to keep us in the game. The trouble is then when those bigger ideas are brought to the organization and are brought to those leaders, they find it hard to pursue them because the organization is only really set up to process and resource and help small ideas get through the system. Big ideas have nowhere to go. And so the ideas that leaders are ironically asking for get spat out, and let's just call that creative indigestion. So if you're interested in more of this, have a look at section 5 in Be Less Zombie, which is all about how do you create an innovation culture. And there's a few chapters in there that you might find helpful.